friends, let me tell you something. The man who told America he would lock his own door before he would let one unverified foreign soul walk into this country unvetted. That man, Anthony Fauci, the great and powerful, the untouchable, the sacred cow of the American left, sat down in front of the United States Senate and pleaded the Fifth. The Fifth Amendment, the right not to incriminate yourself, the right that every law school professor in the country will tell you very carefully that invoking does not mean you are guilty of anything. And that is true. That is technically, constitutionally, 100% true. And it is also the single most clarifying moment in the entire COVID saga. The man who told you to mask your children, the man who told you you couldn't go to your mother's funeral, the man who told you the lab leak was a conspiracy theory while his agency was shoveling money to the very lab in question, that man, when given the chance to sit under oath and explain himself to the American people, looked the Senate in the eye and said nothing. Fascinating. Truly, truly fascinating. I'm Rick LeBeau. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. Now I want to take you back, folks. Back to the year 2020. Back to when Anthony Fauci, Dr. Doom himself, America's designated panic czar, was on every television set in every living room in this country. He was on magazine covers. He was on throw pillows. I kid you not. You could actually buy a Fauci throw pillow. The man had oven mitts with his face on them. Oven mitts. The man is on an oven mitt. He was treated, and I want you to really absorb this, he was treated the way previous generations treated war heroes, the way Americans used to treat the men who landed at Normandy. That is not an exaggeration. He was carried around on the cultural shoulders of the American left like a Roman emperor at a triumph. And what had he done to earn this? He'd given press conferences. He'd appeared on television. He'd told you to do things. That's it. Meanwhile, the policies this man advocated, and the research his agency funded, and the information he sat on, and the pronouncements he made that turned out to be, how shall I put this delicately, completely and utterly wrong. All of that, for years, was completely off limits for discussion. You remember this. I know you do, because I talked about it when it was happening, and a lot of people said I was nuts. The lab leak theory, which is now accepted as the most likely origin of COVID-19 by multiple U.S. intelligence agencies, was labeled a conspiracy theory by the media, by social media companies who censored it, and by the man now sitting before the Senate pleading the Fifth. Let me tell you something about the timing here, because it matters. Senator Bernie Moreno comes out after this hearing, and he says Fauci treated us like lab rats. Now, that is a phrase, lab rats, coming from the man who funded research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology through EcoHealth Alliance, the kind of gain-of-function research that enhances pathogen transmissibility, the kind of research that, if something went wrong, would produce exactly the kind of virus that shut down the entire world for 2 years. And what does Dr. Fauci do? He pleads the Fifth. Now, here's where it gets really rich, folks, because I love this part. I genuinely love this. Because on cue, on CU, here comes Harvey Levin from TMZ. TMZ, the celebrity gossip outlet. The people who bring you breathless updates about what a Kardashian ate for breakfast. Harvey Levin goes on television and says, and I have this story in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, he says the hearing is heartbreaking and that it resembles a McCarthy climate. McCarthy. We're going with McCarthy. That's the play. I want to explain something to you, my friends. For those of you in Rio Linda, McCarthyism refers to Senator Joseph McCarthy, who in the 1950s conducted investigations into communist infiltration of American institutions. The left has, for 70 years, used McCarthyism as their all-purpose silencing word. Anytime you investigate anything they don't want investigated, anytime you ask questions they don't want answered, out comes McCarthy, and you're supposed to sit down and shut up. Well, here's what Harvey Levin and the drive-by media are not telling you. McCarthy was asking whether communists had infiltrated the State Department. The Senate is asking whether Anthony Fauci funded dangerous research and then misled Congress about it. Those are not comparable situations. And here's the other thing. Do you know what McCarthy's critics said about him? They said he was conducting a witch hunt. They said his targets were innocent. They said he was using congressional power as a political weapon. Sound familiar? The Democrats spent 4 years, hauling Trump allies in front of committees, issuing subpoenas, holding people in contempt, launching investigations into every corner of that man's life. And not once, not a single time, did Harvey Levin go on television and call it a McCarthy climate. Not once did the drive-by media wring their hands about witch hunts. The McCarthy card only gets played when it's their guy on the hot seat. Now, here's what's really going on underneath all of this. And I want you to think about this carefully. The Federalist had a piece today that nailed it. They called it the Democrat playbook. Delay, 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 then dismiss it as old news. The strategy has always been the same. If you can stonewall long enough, if you can run out the clock, the media will eventually declare the scandal relitigating the past, and you skate. The reason Fauci is pleading the fifth now is because the playbook almost worked. Almost. Except this time, the Senate Republicans are not folding. They are pressing ahead with contempt proceedings, and the fallout, as of today, is intensifying. Because, and here's the detail I want you to hold on to, Fauci was overheard after the hearing, venting about the proceedings. Venting. The man who just invoked his constitutional right to remain silent couldn't remain silent in the hallway. For a man who knows how to keep his mouth shut when it counts, he cannot seem to keep his mouth shut when it doesn't. Let me tell you what the American people deserve here. They deserve an accounting, not a political circus, not a show trial, an accounting. The COVID response cost this country trillions of dollars. It cost small businesses that will never reopen. It cost kids 2 years of their education and development. It cost people their livelihoods, their mental health, their ability to say goodbye to dying loved ones. And the man most responsible for the policy framework that produced all of that is sitting in a Senate hearing room claiming his Fifth Amendment rights. Now look, I believe in the Fifth Amendment. I do. I am not one of these people who says invoking the Fifth is an automatic confession of guilt. It is a constitutional right. But I want to ask you a question, and I want you to think about it honestly. If an innocent man, a man of integrity, a man who stands by his record, if that man were sitting before the Senate and all they wanted was answers about decisions he made in the performance of his public duties, would he plead the Fifth? You already know the answer. The left made Fauci a saint. They put him on the oven mitts. They named the man Time's Person of the Year. They elevated him above criticism, above accountability, above the basic democratic principle that public officials answer to the public. And now the bill has come due. They know it, they know it, they know it, and they cannot stand it. There is a poetic justice here that I have to acknowledge, because I am a man who appreciates poetry. The very constitutional protections that the left spent 4 years trying to erode for their political opponents, the presumption of innocence, the right not to self-incriminate, Fauci is now hiding behind. The man is wrapped in the Bill of Rights like a child using a blanket as a shield. I want to say one more thing about this before we move on. Senator Moreno called Fauci the Democrats' hero, and that is exactly right. He is their hero. And what does that tell you? It tells you that the Democrat Party's hero is a man who, when asked to account for himself under oath, goes silent. That's the standard bearer. That's the champion. That's who they put on the oven mitt. Don't doubt me. Before this is over, the American people are going to know the full story of what happened in those labs, in those agencies, and in those briefing rooms. "See, I told you so" is always a phrase I prefer to use in advance. All right, let's run through the roundup, folks, because we have got some stories today that deserve your attention. First up, and this one is a doozy, my friends, an absolute doozy. A new watchdog database has just exposed over $5 billion in foreign cash flooding into 523 politically active nonprofits right here in the United States. Organizations that are not required to disclose their donors. No disclosure required. The money just flows in, invisible from foreign sources, and these groups then go out and push political agendas on American soil. Now, I want you to think about this for 1 second. These are the same people, the same ideological crowd who spent years hyperventilating about Russian Facebook ads, spent years telling you that any foreign interference in American politics was tantamount to a constitutional crisis, spent years impeaching the previous president over a phone call with Ukraine, and $5 billion, $5 billion from foreign sources flowing into American political nonprofits, and we hear crickets. The drive-by media finds this curious, but not curious enough to actually cover it with any seriousness. Funny how that works. Funny how the concern about foreign money in American politics evaporates the second the foreign money is going somewhere they like. Next, and this one's from Michigan, which is shaping up to be the most interesting political story of the next year. A socialist by the name of Abdul El-Sayed is leading his Democrat primary opponent for the Senate by 15 points. A socialist, 15 points, and he trails the Republican in that race by 10. Which means the Democrat Party in Michigan is about to nominate someone who genuinely cannot win a general election, because roughly a third of the entire Democrat Party nationally now identifies as Democratic Socialists, per a CNN poll. CNN reported this, by the way, which means even CNN can't hide it anymore. Now, I want to point something out here that I think is important, and I mean this sincerely. The Democrat establishment, the professional consultants, and the party infrastructure, they keep telling themselves that the socialist wing is manageable, that they can placate the radicals during the primary and then snap back to the center for November. They have been telling themselves this story for 8 years, and it keeps not being true. When a third of your party calls itself socialist, that third is not going away. That third is not getting smaller. That third is running candidates, and those candidates are winning primaries. This is not a fringe. This is the direction of travel. The non-socialist Democratic establishment is not managing this. They are losing to it. Michigan may be the place it becomes impossible to ignore. The poor, battered Democrat moderates. They are out there trying to hold the line. I almost feel sorry for them. Almost. Not really. And last in the roundup today, New Mexico. Now here is a story that should make your blood boil, and I make no apologies for saying so. The New Mexico Attorney General, and this is real, folks, this actually happened, is suing to get back a 15-year-old American citizen who was taken to a Texas border crossing by his own foster care staff and allegedly walked across into Mexico against his will. A 15-year-old American child. Handed across the border. by government employees. I want to sit with that for a moment because it is hard to process. Now, the administration is also getting some flake today over a DACA recipient, a mother of 3 who was deported to Mexico and is now suing because the government terminated her status, citing unauthorized travel, the very travel that resulted from her deportation. That case has some complexity to it, and I understand reasonable people can have a debate about DACA and what we owe people who were brought here as children. But the foster care story, that is not complicated. That is a government employee taking an American kid to the border and sending him across. That is not immigration policy. That is abandonment of duty. The Attorney General is right to sue. And somebody in that foster care system needs to answer for what happened to that boy. My friends, we have covered some ground today. Fauci and the fifth, $5 billion in foreign cash nobody wants to talk about. The Democrats marching cheerfully towards socialism, one primary at a time, and a 15-year-old American kid the government decided was Mexico's problem. What is the through line of all of this? I'll tell you what it is. Accountability has become a partisan concept in this country. It only applies to the people the establishment wants it to apply to. The connected, the credentialed, the ideologically useful. They plead the fifth. They hide behind nonprofits. They get covered for by a media that stopped being curious the moment curiosity became dangerous to their preferred narrative. And the ordinary American, the 15-year-old in the foster system, the small business owner who lost everything to lockdown policies, the voter whose citizenship-verified ballot gets diluted by someone who should never have been on the roll, he gets nothing. No accountability runs in his direction. He just deals with the consequences. That is what this program exists to address. Not because I have all the answers, though, folks. I have most of them, let's be honest. But because somebody has to say it plainly, without the hedging, without the corporate-approved circumspection, without the carefully lawyered nothingness that passes for commentary in most of the media today. The all-knowing, all-sensing, all-seeing Maha Ricky has spoken, with half his brain tied behind his back, just to make it fair. Go out there, be good Americans, hug somebody you love. And remember, the truth has a way of eventually showing up, even when everyone in power would prefer it didn't. Sometimes it shows up in a Senate hearing room in the form of a very famous man saying absolutely nothing. I'm Rick Lebow. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow, if they let us back on.